teachers of Reddit, what was the most obvious teacher crush someone had on you? I had a student who had a rough life. Mom pretty much abandoned him, and grandma was raising him by pawning him off to family on the weekends. I knew he was going to have a rough life if someone didn't step in and let him know he mattered. He asked me one day how I would know if someone loved me. I jokingly replied that that person would bring me coffee in the morning. A few days later he came into the gym with a huge smile and a cup of gas station coffee. He walked right up and handed it to me along with a bag of creamers and sugars. Said he didn't know how I liked my coffee, so he grabbed one of each. He saved his allowance, and asked his grandma to leave for school early so he could stop by the gas station. The next year he brought me a coffee mug so I could remember him when I drank my morning coffee. That kid will always have my heart. When I was playing Hamlet in the school play, and the girl playing Ophelia got stage fright at the last minute, so the drama teacher had to costume up and sub in for her, on her knees in a low-cut bodice, hanging onto my leg, and screaming, "Oh, help him, you sweet heavens." I got a boner in front of 500 people. Not a teacher, but this one girl had such a blatantly huge crush on my film studies teacher when we were 15/16ths. She herself was mixed race and would ask the poor guy if he preferred white chocolate, dark chocolate or _caramel_winky face. Safe to say that was awkward for everyone present in the room. I dislike all of them. In the days of MSN, I got a chat invite from someone who had the same last name as me. I assumed it was a relation, but they didn't say anything, and so I left for a bit to eat. I came back and saw a couple more people had been added to the chat and saw they'd been talking about me. I realized they were students because they referred to me as Miss. They were teasing one of the others for his crush on me, and he was defending my massive ass as hot. I can vouch for that. Massive asses are hot. I taught pre-K, and one student always wanted to be around me and would pretend to slip up and call me mom. He saw my phone had a screensaver of me and my at the time boyfriend, and he got all mad and said I should break up with him. Lol. Kids are adorable. I doubt he'll remember me in a few years. Working as a substitute teacher, I had a 6th grader hand in a poem that went, "Roses are red, violets are blue. I am single, how about you?" She also worked her phone number into another poem she handed in. "Roses are red, my eyes are blue." I had a crush on my teacher in high school. After I graduated, I asked him out to lunch with my best friend and me. He agreed. We met up a few days later and he walked in with his husband. That was a rough day for me. I was a special needs teacher. There was zero subtlety. One student would constantly try to lift up my skirt. Straight to the point, I see. Back when I was teaching preschool, 3-year-olds don't do subtle. He always wanted to hold my hand when we went on walks, to sit next to me at circle time, and just to look at me with puppy eyes. It was adorable, but at the same time it was a relief when he grew out of it. Years later, I was teaching an all-boy class at a vocational high school and was lucky enough to get a bright new teacher on a Comenius exchange to co-teach the class with me. She was also quite attractive and the boys reacted. Since it was an English language class, I got a kick out of doing my best Mary Poppins impression. "Close your mouth, please, we are not a codfish." I had a kid ask me to marry him the other day. Then he proceeded to say I would be way too old for him by the time he was old enough to get married. Best day of your life and the worst day of your life. Kids are so cruel with their marriage proposals. I teach at a university and students ask me out. I had a student once ask me out in front of the class while I was teaching, but I think it was more a power move than anything else. Edit, bonus story. I teach a sexuality class and a student brought up negging. I asked the class for a definition and one dude goes, "You're pretty for a sociologist." The entire class was horrified that he had negged me. Had a teacher in high school who had the same thing happen to her. She looked at the kid and said, "Honey, I teach all day, don't have time to teach at night too." That shut him down pretty quickly. I have a student this year who tells me how pretty my hair is every single day. He's 7. That's actually adorable. Lol. I teach at a local university and I've had a few, including one who used to sketch me during class, one who tried to put his arm around me, etc. The most obvious and persistent was a student who used to follow me after class every day, show up at my office just to talk, and spent all of his time attempting to look down my shirt. He ended up dropping out of college halfway through the semester. Have sketched teachers, definitely did not have a crush on them too. I'm not a teacher, but I do have a story of when I was a HS student. It was my senior year and I had a crush on this young history teacher. He would come on model-on trips with us as a chaperone, so he knew who I was. It was my birthday and he heard from a different teacher across the hall. He said happy birthday to me, and my response was thanks, I'm 18. I blurted it out very quickly and realized literally the second it left my mouth how inappropriate it was. His response, well, you can vote now. Kids and teenagers always announce their age on their birthdays. The teacher may not have noticed what you think they noticed. My first year teaching high school, AV department made an end of the year tape for the students every year as a keepsake. That year they allowed a senior to profess her love to me on the tape. I didn't know she had done this and they had allowed it until it played over their AV system to the whole school. Needless to say I was pissed, but I couldn't make too much of a stink because I didn't want a lot of attention drawn to it. And they weren't going to take it out. Fuckers. Wow, that's fucking unprofessional by them. I had a student ask me if I was married. Yes. This was followed by, but are you happily married? I started teaching way too young. Edit, appreciate the silver and gold. I'm glad to have amused you all with my awkward moment. Got to admire that dedication. I taught preschool and the owner's grandson would tell everyone we were going to get married once he was done with first grade. He even gave me mittens with hearts on them because hearts are for love. He's in middle school now and doesn't remember me. Woman shrugging. I teach preschool too. It was my last day at a school because I was moving. One of the 4-year-olds announced to everyone that he knew where I was moving. When asked, he explained that Miss Pumpkin Pastimes was moving in with him as we were getting married. News to me. When I left my computer unlocked and a student put naked pictures of herself as my wallpaper and a post-it with her number. Holy fuck. Let's just lace his computer with child porn in public view. Jesus. Could have been a bully too actually. Bit of a different one this. Parents' evening, single mum comes in to talk about her son. Her youngest daughter, probably about 4, runs in, jumps on my knee and exclaims, my mummy says you're going to be our new daddy. Longest parents' evening of my life, smiley face. I taught grade 7 and one kid in particular took a liking to me. It wasn't a crush per se. Came across more as an elementary school fascination with the teacher. He would raise his hand constantly during class to answer questions, and when students were doing work he would raise his hand constantly to ask me random questions about my life. He had a few favorite questions like what song is stuck in your head right now? Or what's your fiance's name? One time he very excitedly told me he had seen me at Costco, and I hadn't been to Costco that week, so he clearly was seeing me in places I wasn't. During college I was teaching a lesson about money and having a job to kindergarteners and opened with, so how do you guys think I got the money to buy candy? Small blonde child, because you're cute. Supervising teacher in the back of the room just starts laughing lol. A student who had a crush on me wrote a straightforward proposition and asked another teacher to deliver it to me. This teacher was a mentor of sorts to the student, so you'd think he'd do something wiser and more responsible than what he actually did, which was deliver the note and threaten me with some form of unspecified violence if I told anyone. So I informed the principal, and both the student and teacher were transferred to other schools. Would you date me if I was older? An 11-year-old in my class. Not a teacher but used to be a Cub Scout guide. One of our boys, 10-year, had a crush on my adjutant, 16-year girl. He swore she will be his girlfriend one day, and was strangely serious about it. We laughed it off, and forgot about it. Years went by, the boy became a man, joined the army, came back, went to medical university, got buff and handsome, and reached out to his old crush on Facebook. They got married last May, and have a baby girl. Damn that ending too. I'm not a teacher, but when I was in college we had a pretty sexy biology professor. Not only was he physically attractive, but he seemed to be a pretty cool person. Most of the women in his classes were pretty smitten, and I won't pretend like I wasn't one of them. However, I went back to college after a few years off, so I was 26 in rooms of 18 to 21-year-olds. 5 years may not seem like a huge difference, but holy shit, it was. His office was connected to the lab, and one day while myself and some other students were doing work in the lab, this one girl was quite loudly proclaiming the things she would do to him, including saying things like, "I don't care if he's married with kids." He was sitting in his office at the time, and I said, "You need to keep your ovaries in check. He can definitely hear you right now." She said she didn't care and she hoped it tempted him. It made me uncomfortable for him. I can't imagine how he must have felt. He usually came out of his office to chat with us or help us, but not that day. Not me, but when I was in school a teacher found another student's very graphic erotic fanfiction about him. Ended up having a conference with her parents, counselor, and principal. Girl got transferred to a different classroom but tried to shoot up the school with what she thought was her brother's secret gun. It was a toy he modified to look real. Hadn't seen or heard about her since, but before I graduated the school made it a rule that staff were not to be depicted in any creative work, and if any such work was found the owner was looking at suspension. My older brother's friend proposed to our 60-plus teacher every day. She always laughed about it. Cue the entire football team picking up on this and proposing to her before every game. For about 3 years. Though the team may have queued up on cue. Starting teaching high school English at 21 in the early 90s. Very religious student wrote me an anonymous letter explaining that she believed that God had put her in my class because we were meant to be together. Figured it out by handwriting, reported it. It was last days of the school year before she graduated, so I don't think I ever had to deal with her being in my class again because of finals or something. Not a teacher, a student. Back in middle school, 16 years ago, I had a crush on a teacher of mine, although I wasn't aware of the severity of it until it was too late. Around Halloween time we were supposed to write a poem about a teacher of ours. I, of course, procrastinated until the night before and then realized that I lost the sheet with the contents of what the poem is supposed to be. All I knew was that it had to be about a teacher, so I chose my crush unbeknownst to me. The next day I show up to class and try and turn in my paper where I was informed by my teacher crush that we were going to be reading our poems in front of 2 classes, separated by a sliding wall half the time. As other students read theirs, I quickly realized these poems were supposed to be Halloween related. I panicked because mine didn't fit the criteria and had nothing to do with Halloween. It wasn't until I was reading mine aloud that I felt the sudden rushing aha moment of what I had just confessed to the entire 2 classes. Both teachers from either side of the wall and the entire student body watched in stupefied horror as I read it aloud, voice and hands shaking. Too late to turn back. It went like this to start. Mr. Hopper, Mr. Hopper, I have a dog named Copper. Mr. Hopper, Mr. Hopper, you make my eyes popper. I don't remember the rest. When I finally looked at Mr. Hopper, his entire face and neck was red with embarrassment. We never spoke of it ever, and I avoided him like the plague. I'm sure it was the same around. I swear the first year I was teaching I passed 2 students in the hall and the one said, "That's the new teacher," and his friend said, "Yeah, he's so hot." Edit, for anyone confused, student 1 was a guy, and the student who said I was hot was a girl. I am a guy.